the topic of my presentation was already announced, and you see the suprasegmental characteristic and how they are viewed by the speakers. I will speak about lexically and grammatically relevant suprasegmental features. It is no exaggeration to say that tones, both lexical and grammatical, and to a lesser extent syllable accents or pitch stress, keep some Western linguists in almost mystical awe. Western, I mean all European, including Russian linguists, of course. I will show how the speakers of the languages which happen to have tonal or pitch stress systems perceive these characteristics. So what do I mean by suprasegmental features? These are tones which characterize every vowel of the word. Or these are syllable accents which characterize one of the syllable of the word, that the syllable that is under the stress, and usually it is referred to as a musical accent. It was in ancient Greek, in Latin, in some dialects of Swedish and Latvian, so it is not so alien for European languages, but tone systems are known in Europe. I think probably they will be discovered, but so, the question is, are speakers of these languages aware of these suprasegmental characteristics? Or are these characteristics just the invention of linguists which analyze these languages? So, let us ask people who speak languages of this type. I happen to work with two languages which have those characteristics. These are the Udehe language of Tungus Manju group, which has pitch stress, and the Mona or Muan language, which has tonal distinctions. This is the South Mande language group. So, people are completely aware of the suprasegmental structure of those languages. Speakers of languages of these types distinguish, know perfectly well that the words are distinguished not by sounds. They usually say letters, of course, because they do not know the word phoneme, and they use the word letter. But by something else, but some other characteristic which they usually cannot name because they just do not know the terminology. Still, they know that the speech will not be understood without this something. So, of course, my language assistants are probably not the clear case because they are not monolinguals. Of course, I worked with Udehas in Russian and with Mona speakers in French, so they cannot be monolinguals. They all have at least school education, sometimes even high education. They are literate in other languages than their own. They are literate in Russian for Udehas, or in French with Mona speakers. And all of them, unfortunately, have previous experience in working with linguists, that of course they are kind of spoiled. They cannot be said that they are real naive speakers. Still, I think that their ideas about the structure of their language seem to be indicative. They reflect the common views of the whole language community in question. Well, so the questions are, how speakers of tonal languages perceive tones of pitch stress? What words do they use speaking about these characteristics of their languages? because they do not know the linguistic terminology. What do they know about grammar? Typically, people obtain fragments of linguistic knowledge from school while learning Russian or French. And that is bad, because usually they tell you, well, this is plus que parfait. And of course, this something has absolutely nothing to do with French grammar. It has no plus que parfait, but they love to use this linguistic terminology that they happen to know. However, the school grammars of these languages do not supply students with the terminology needed to describe suprasegmental features. They do not learn about tones, phonations, and things like that, because there are nothing like that in Russian or French. So, and with French it is even worse, because French doesn't have no variable stress, so they do not learn the word stress or accent. They do not know it. In French it's always in the end. So, let's start with Udehe. The problem is that, well, at least in northern dialect, the vowels are distinguished in the 4 vowels types are distinguished: short, long, long glottalized, and long aspirated. So they can be considered as pitch or phonation accents. From the linguistic point of view, the 2 letter types are characterized by phonation, which are suprasegmental features. And I will try to show you our speaker of northern dialect will pronounce this word with a glottalized accent. So we hear that the first O is in fact glottalized. It's not short, not long. And then now boto means the mushroom that grows on the tree. I don't know, probably it is not mushroom. And this word ahikta means some spruce tree. Listings. I have no idea how it is in English. So, so we hear that the first, second, ahi, this is diphthong with aspirated phonation. So this is very essential for the language. So what terminology do they use? They speak about udarение, that is stress in Russian. And Udehe speakers consistently use the Russian term udarение to designate specific vowels of their language. They do not know the right term, but they realize that this phenomena is of the same nature as the variable stress of Russian. So they always point out, as our informant always was saying, well, you do not use the right ударение. Нужно правильно ставить ударение. In Russian, it sounds very funny, and so they criticize Russian speakers who try to speak Udehe like we, and the younger speakers also, that they do not use the stress right. Они неправильно ставят ударение, they say it in Russian. And of course, the elder speakers do not realize that this feature is one of the most serious difficulties for a probable Udehe learner. They just speak about laziness. They are too lazy, and you use the wrong stress, that's why. In fact, the younger generation of Udehe speakers, these are people under 60 years old, cannot use the right stress is an indication of the serious language attrition of the language. So now we go to, yes, and younger people criticize the current Udehe orthography, which consistently reflects the suprasegmental features in writing, and say that крючков понаставили непонятных. That means that they put a lot of incomprehensible hooks in writing, so because they do not pronounce it anymore. So now we go to mono on one language, which has happen to have 3 level tones, and there are in fact 8 tonal patterns, like all possibilities. And besides, there are lexical tone, that is a tone of the word in a dictionary, then contextual tone, because the tone depends of tonality of the previous word, and the grammatical tone. To certain forms have special tones, usually verbs, of course. So all these factors include influence the tone of a word in text. The tonal distinctions are therefore very important. So mono speakers, it is necessary to say the general level of education is much lower than the educational level of Udehe. Only 15% of mono are literate in French, and about 5 or 10 people, I think, are literate in their native language.
5 to 10% of people.
5-10 people. People like that. I know them all, you know. It's just, it is not, and besides, and I will show why, because because their writing system is absolutely wrong for the language of this type. They should not write with letters, I think. The monos are completely aware of the tonal nature of their language. They use the word wele. This is a gerund of the verb we, to speak, to produce sound. So it can be translated as sound producing of voice, to refer to tone distinctions. So this is the quotation my informant says. If you say, for example, ma instead of ma. Так, now we'll say ano. I will try to somehow. If en lieu de ma with middle tone, you will say ma with high tone. They will not understand you. They will probably ask you, what are you talking about? What do you want? You probably will point out at the chicken, because ma with middle tone means chicken. And they will say you, but you do not, but it is not how it is called. You do not have the right voice. And they probably will pronounce correctly ma. The word ma does not exist. It just means nothing. But there is a word broom that is ma with another tone. I will talk. Wow. Well, I think. Okay. Typically, but the problem is that typically a mono speaker cannot immediately indicate the initial vocabulary tone of a word, because the intervening of lexical, contextual, and grammatical factors which influence the superficial tone of a word in phrase makes it useless to learn tones of separate words. So you cannot ask what is the tone of this word, because probably in text it will have absolutely another tone. Tone melody characterizes the whole clause. Even people who study other languages, they say you have to learn the tonal structure of the whole phrase, just the melody, and not the tonal of a single word. It doesn't help. So whistling is an instructional method. Being unable to indicate the tone of a separate word in mono speakers can easily reproduce the tone structure of the whole phrase by whistling it. And it is used as instructional method in the process of alphabetization of the Mona. As they know French letters, but the crucial task is to learn tone marking. Here. So you see, this ma, the word does not exist. This is ma chicken. This is broom. That is, you see, this has another toneme. So this is how they are learned to write, because it is easy to write letters, but it is difficult to mark tones. And if they would have a writing system like Chinese, it would be probably much easier, because then they will write the word chicken or broom or something, and here they have to distinguish first sound and then tonal system. And here you have the whole phrase, I have a chicken and I have a broom. Так, and now, wait. Unfortunately, yeah. So that's how it works. So why it is so difficult to write and read in Mona, and why there's only 10 people who, though many of them can read and write French, why they do not use? Because the promotion of the literacy in Mona and similar languages of the region faced two correlated problems. The writing person has significant difficulties while marking tones and tends to mark them incorrectly or not to mark at all. Lots of mistakes in marking tones. But the text is with unmarked tones or with tones marked incorrectly is completely incomprehensible for the person reading. Like you see, that's probably the hieroglyphic system would be much easier. We whistle phrase to understand its tone. It's just citation. It is easier for us to see tones while whistling, our monotones. That's why we whistle. But when we speak, we cannot see the tones. This whistling is the easiest way to realize the good tone, le bon ton. By whistling, we realized that it is like music. It goes up or down. And now the whole phrase, very simple. I see Tony's child. So, well, it is basically all what I had to say. The conclusion. Speakers of languages with suprasegmental features are absolutely aware that they have these features. It is they have the clear idea of the existence of this phenomena in their languages. They not only correct mistakes, they understand their main point. They are also able to discuss these matters using words which are in fact appropriate for this purpose. And this is the, yes, the one is Mona. This is the festive for the translation of the Bible that was all in French. Not a single speech was in their language. It is all inscriptions and all speeches were made in French. So this is the future of this language. Sorry, yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much, Lena, for a most interesting talk. And we have a lot of time left for questions. Who would like to whistle a question? You're welcome.
Where? In the Ivory Coast? In the middle part of the Ivory Coast?
Okay, more questions? Natasha, yeah.
You have examples
Could you please speak a bit louder because it's...
The name referred to the length of vowels.
Length of vowel.
I have examples from Finnish languages when there is a difference only in the length of vowel between words, so they also use the very because they also.
Well, I think in Finnish languages we have you have those three level.
No, even just when you have just.
No, I don't think so. They just say long, short. It's, you speak about whom? About udihes or about monos?
No, about that. Do they use term Russian term
I think it is basically, well, you remember that perfectly well because we worked with Natasha because she was using it about the phonations, of course. Well, because we were together in that expedition.
So do you mean that she should answer her question herself?
Yeah. There is also a very interesting that children start to use tones correctly at the age of 3. That's difficult to imagine, but that's so.
Why is it difficult to imagine?
Well, because, you know, it's so kind of difficult, isn't it? Well, but I agree.
You mean are they 3, they're too young or too old?
They're too young, I think, to, well, for those matches, who knows? Well, for us it's just, as we cannot use it, it's surprising.
Okay, more questions, please?
What kind of stress in Udige? What kind of stress in Udige? Is that only...
In Udige, they, you mean stress, just stress. Usually they have the pitch, the high pitch at the last syllable, so it is not, it's kind of mechanic. It is not meaningful. It's just the end of the word goes up.
Why do you think that the ET is the stress?
Well, it is what in phonology, I mean in phonetics, called stress, because what they use what they are called by the word ударение is just phonation. It has nothing to do with the stress, with the tone.
Only as their own movements, as you said.
Yes, yeah. It is not like Russian stress at all.
So it's not phonemic.
No, stress is absolutely not phonemic. No. Yeah.
Victoria Borisovna.
My general question. Suppose your persistence were not aware of the workings of Suprasegmentics, but were too vaguely aware to give you the good answers they did. Would that mean that the linguists have invented this phenomenon? Is that the point that all the important elements of the structure would be, the speakers would be aware of those? Could it go below their level of awareness?
But if somebody speaks with wrong tones, they will know it and they will correct. They correct children when they speak with wrong tones. That's why children at the age of 3 start speaking correctly. So they say it somehow. You speak wrong with the wrong voice. Say so. It's if they correct, it means that they are aware of that.
More questions? Koля?
I wonder if all the speakers of this Mandarin language, yes, I forgot the name, use whistling to correct children and to show the tone.
No. It was invented as the method of teaching them to read and write, because it is the only way to teach them to write. Unfortunately, it is what is an instructional method.
In which context do your informants use the term "взгляд"?
с с показателями референционного сдвига по Плунгяну.
Thank you very much for your impressive presentation. You talked about awareness of tone levels. If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned 8 tonal levels.
3 tonal levels and 8 tonemes, because it can be from up to from low to middle, from middle to high, and so, because these are tonemes.
My question is that, are there different levels of awareness of these tonal levels you mentioned, or is there a flat level? Are we dealing with a simple level of awareness, or can we divide level of consciousness or awareness of tonal levels, or stress levels on the other hand?
So you mean, do they know that this is middle tone and this is low tone? No. That's why my informant said that when we start whistling, we understand that it goes up and down like music, and when they speak, they do not know.
Dealing with the homogeneous phenomenon.
What do you mean by the word homogeneous?
Yeah, I mean, for example, the awareness of, for example, rising tone is the same as the realization of falling tone.
Well,
Did they have the same awareness of these tone realizations or not?
Well, I think they understand it in words. It's just, that's why I think that Chinese writing system would be better, because they do not distinguish between letters, between sounds and tones. It's just something that they understand, and that's it. That's why it is so difficult to teach them to write, because they have to first write letters and then put tones. It's just something that they never do when they hear like ma and they understand that it is chicken. That's it.
Any more questions? I've got a question. I'm wondering, what do you think would happen if the Udiger didn't have school education and didn't know the term stress, ударение, and so on? So how would they treat their
I have no idea.
language? But maybe you have some.
Well, probably they also will say, no, you speak incorrectly, you should pronounce it such and such, I think.
So maybe they
You should not say
whistling or
no, because they have phonations. That's different. They have phonations. That's another thing.
What
No,
do you think they would do?
they would do.
How they would explain it to you? No idea.
No idea. I have never seen a Udiher without a school education. They do not exist in the world, I think. Oh yes. Well, I know all speakers of Udiher. There are probably 10 people. You know that it is not difficult to know everybody.
That's great. Okay. Thank you very much.